All right, we are all here, so I will call us to order at 7 p.m. Welcome, everyone. First up, I've got commendations. Does anyone have a commendation tonight? John?
I just want to commend our staff that worked over the break in particular, Scott Lavoie at the high school went out on New Year's Day to pick up the test kits in Franklin. And as everyone knows, that was quite the saga from Wednesday to Thursday with a pickup on Friday that got delayed till Saturday. So Scott Lavoie certainly deserves a big shout out. And then he was there all day on Sunday helping with the distribution. And speaking of the distribution, the entire leadership team showed up to participate and help with that. So I want to give a shout out to all of our district leaders.
Thanks, John. Megan? Sarah, I see you. I'll do you next.
I obviously, second and agree with everything John said, but I do just want to take it one step further because I think all the staff have really gone above and beyond just to make sure that our schools could be open and our kids could get back there on Monday. And I know everyone had to be very flexible with those changes as they were happening kind of last minute. And also with, the number of people out this week. So I just think everyone's gone above and beyond. And I just really want to say thank you to our staff for, again, keeping our schools open so our kids could be there on Monday and all week. So thank you.
I couldn't agree more. This was one of the hardest weeks to be in a school. I think since December 2020 when things felt so crushing. So I'm really grateful that every day we were able to remain open, and tomorrow we get a little gift of a snow day. Sarah, go ahead.
I just wanted to give a commendation to 3 of our high school students who were winners in the New York Times Coming of Age contest. If I read correctly, I just want to confirm here, it was over 4,000 people entered. And then there was 25 students, this is nationwide, that were featured in an article in the New York Times and a link on their page, which I hope we can post. And 3 of our students were featured in that top 25. They were, and I apologize for butchering names if I do, Mimi Fallon, Carrie Lindy, and Courtney Duffy. The performances and the visual art that was done by these 3 is really amazing. I just wanted to recognize that.
Thanks, Sarah. That was going to be my next statement, was to commend them. And I had a chance to look that over before the meeting tonight, and it really is amazing. And I think, I only looked at theirs, but I remember the ones from last year as well. I think it's such a good snapshot into what our students are doing and what our students are going through within COVID as well, that just like all of our lives, nothing has truly stopped. And our students are still experiencing everything and going through the turmoils of being teenagers and, and on down the line. And so I think it just, those 3 girls, they did such a nice job just sort of highlighting the experience of teenagers right now. Anybody else? David?
I think it falls in line with a commendation or a thank you, or in some ways a farewell. I think all of us know that Jason Silva tendered his resignation to the town on Monday, and he'll be around for 4 more weeks. But Jason's been here 3.5 years, and we got to work very closely with him on the building committee because the town administrators were required, as much as I think Jason wished he could be in Beverly some of those late nights and those hours when we were working to get the project off the ground and get to the building stage and everything. But, Jason was right there. He was very, he played a critical role in moving us through the planning board and zoning process, and the help of his office and Becky and his staff. And he played a really key role in working closely with the neighbors as things came up with the project and never hesitated to meet with neighbors, talk with neighbors. The other thing that comes to mind is when we did the underground power coming off Dartmouth Road, the DPW actually did the trench work. So rather than having to source out another vendor, Jason stepped up and worked with the DPW, and they were here doing the underground trench work for the power. And he's also been a member of the OAC, the owner architect committee, and that meets on Wednesdays. So, we'll miss Jason. He's been a really good partner of the schools, and outside of the school project, I think we all know, we're at this time of the year when we get to, the budgets, and, when Bill stepped in, I think Jason did a really good job of helping bring Bill up to speed with what things were Marblehead and how we did our business. And I assume that he's done the same with you, Dr. Bucky, from what I know, all accounts as well. So I wish Jason the best of luck and want to thank him for everything that he's contributed to the schools, and wish him well. He'll be missed.
Thanks, David. All right. I will move us along then to our student representative, Yasin Cologne. Welcome, Yasin.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, good. All right. Not a ton these past couple weeks just because of the break and such, but we do have some news. Boys soccer coach Magana, won Coach of the Year from Salem News. So congratulations to him. The band, chorus, and orchestra had their winter concert on December 20th. On December 21st, the school held a fundraiser for the postgrads. The National French Honor Society also held a fundraiser for the Haiti Development Institute before break on 12/22. Like Sarah mentioned, 3 of our students won the New York Times contest, so congratulations to them once again. Our school newspaper Headlight is coming soon after they've had a bit of a break. We had a math meet today at the high school. Team Harmony, which is a group that focuses on ending bias and discrimination, is working on a presentation for the middle school. The sophomore class is preparing for semi, and they are inquiring about a fundraiser with Shoebies. The junior class will be doing an online popcorn fundraiser, so that's exciting. The seniors, unfortunately, had to cancel their winter dance, but they're not too concerned about it, and they are starting to prepare for senior show. In terms of sports, boys basketball is 2-1, and girls are 2-3 at the moment.
Great. Thank you very much, Yasin. It's always
thank
lovely
you.
to have an update. Enjoy your snow day tomorrow, too.
Thank you. I will. You too.
Good. All right. That brings us to public comment. If you would like to make public comment, you can use the raise hand function, and I will call on you. Please remember to state your full name and address for the record as well. All right. I will start with Sandra Callahan.
Hi, my name is Sandra Callahan, 25 August Road. My concern is there are changes being in the COVID dashboard that occurred on Monday afternoon without much explanation to parents. So I have a couple of concerns that as a parent, and I think a lot of the public would like to know. So as of Monday, there was a disclaimer that was added to the dashboard saying that only true positive PCRs would be added, and that no longer home testing and self-reported would be added to the dashboard, which is really giving our school population misleading information that we don't have a lot of COVID going on in the schools. A couple of questions that I have that I hope that the school committee maybe can think about is, are we no longer testing with antigen testing? Because my understanding is that we are using antigen testing for both test and stay and symptomatic. And if we are, why are these positive antigen tests no longer being added to the dashboard? Is the school requiring anyone now with a positive antigen test to have a confirmation with a PCR test? What constitutes a positive PCR test to be added to the dashboard? Dr. Bucky asked that all parents have their kids tested. We received an email as well as a robocall on a Thursday at 3 p.m. asking that we test all of our children. Most of us did that as best we can, but I think the reality is access to PCR testing, me being a provider, is quite limited. Most parents have access to antigen testing. So everyone that was tested, that tested positive, yet those weren't added to the dashboard. My question is, what constitutes a PCR to be added to the dashboard? Is it only any PCR that's confirmed within a 5-day window of when a child can return back to school? My other question that I have is, what is our expectation of parents from our superintendent to be told when we're having excessive student absences as well as staff shortages? I was disheartened to learn that we had lots of absences via our staff, as well as our student population from my students that, my kids that reported it back. But also I was disheartened to actually read this in the patch. I would hope that that's information that our superintendent would share with our school population. And then lastly, I request, if other communities, if the concern is that we can't do contact tracing, I understand that. We're having a huge outbreak in regards to COVID. And I understand our staff is short. I understand our nurses are overworked. I understand that. I'm in that reality. I deal with pediatrics all the time. What I'm asking is that if we can't not disclaim a positive antigen test when we can't get patients to get PCR tests. Linfield Public Schools, their dashboard, they have PCR tests as well as they list their antigen test. I think that's something that we need to consider, and parents can, have a fair idea of what's going on in our schools. So that's my frustration in regards to the lack of transparency of what parents are being told in regards to how much COVID is affecting our kids, as well as how much of our staff is out. And I don't want to have to rely on my children to tell me what's going on in the school. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. All right. I don't have any other. Oh, I do have one more hand raised. Jess Benedetto.
Hi, good evening. I wanted to again bring up, as was mentioned before, yes, we're having a lot of COVID in our schools, and yes, the priority by DESE and our governor has been for in-person learning. We, people who serve our community, and I speak for myself, as well as mental health workers, as well as drivers, as well as nurses, as well as physical therapists, as well as police and fire people. People who serve our community are undergoing unprecedented staff shortages, and so much so that our local hospital has National Guard members there to help. In these unprecedented staff shortages, getting a safe, reliable transportation for our children to school for working parents who do not work at a computer but work in person serving our community has become a necessity. And it is not a luxury, it is a necessity. And I have brought this up now for 2 years, and I'd like to see this become part of our budget conversation. And I apologize, I didn't say, my name is Jessica Benedetto, Bradley Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Elaine Leahy.
Hi, Elaine Leahy, Ida Road. I just wanted to say, can you hear me? Okay, I just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Bucky and others today for a great sustainability meeting we had. It seems that we're making a lot of good progress. I'm on Sustainable Marblehead, I should say. Todd Bloodgood had mentioned we've gotten new trash bags that are reducing plastic. We have composting starting at vets. We're still, of course, like as Jessica said, looking at busing down the line. But I think a lot of good sustainability things are going on. And I just wanted to let everyone know that we're appreciative and wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. All right, that's all my hands. So I will move us along to the consent action and agenda items. And in our minutes section today, we have 4 minutes that were in our Dropbox. Does anybody have anything to change on those or to add? Sarah?
There was one small change for the minutes on 5/20 in the section talking about sustainability. there's a reference that Dr. Bucky was going to touch base with the Director of Student Services. That just needs to be changed to the Director of Food Services.
All right, thanks. I wrote that down, and I know Lisa's on this call as well. All right, anybody else? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from 5/6/2021, 5/13/2021, 5/19/2021, and 5/20/2021?
So moved.
Megan moved,
Seconded.
Sarah second. All right, all in favor, Sarah Gold, yes. David Harris,
Yes.
Sarah Fox,
Yes.
Emily Barron,
Yes.
and Megan Taylor.
Yes.
All right, thank you everyone, and thank you, Lisa. She was working really hard on those. All right, John, I will dish to you for the district updates.
All right, one of them was taken care of for me by Elaine. I was going to talk about the sustainability meeting that happened today, and a lot of good stuff came out of that, and she really kind of captured that well. I have had lunch the last 2 days at the high school and can say without question they have a robust composting and recycling program going on, and that has trickled down into the 8th grade and will be expanding to the 7th grade, I believe, in the coming week. We had a good presentation by an electric bus company prior to the holiday vacation, and they're scheduled for an on-site visit this month to continue that conversation. And the new trash bags that Facilities Director Bloodgood talked about today. So there are a lot of good initiatives. The idling campaign, the question came up during the meeting today to make sure there are signs at all of our schools about idling. I see them at Village. It was confirmed that there are some here at the Brown School for parents, and we're going to be making sure that they're at Glover as well. So some good things happening on the sustainability front. Question?
Can I just add 2 things to that, just because there was a lot that we covered? One of the things that this group has been working on, I think, now for a while, is getting the composting and recycling up and running. So we know it's working at the high school. And John, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think, Vets has started to implement that as well. So they're, making sure that they're doing it in a thoughtful way. And then Village will be next. And one thing too, I just want to thank Sustainable Marblehead, because with the Brown School opening, we noticed that there are a number of water refill stations throughout this nice building. And we've got that in a lot of other buildings too. Vets and Village were really the 2 where we, that wasn't quite so prevalent. So Sustainable Marblehead did some fundraising to get us one at Vets. And I think Vets has purchased a second one too. So that's great. And we also talked about then, maybe Village should be the area that we look at next to get those installed there as well. So just, there's a lot going on with sustainability, but those were 2 big ones that I was really happy to talk about as well.
On the budget front, we had a joint meeting with the town prior to leaving for the holiday resource after the budget workshops with the school committee to have a first pass with that group. The leadership team met on Monday of this week and reviewed all of the information in the budget so far, looked for things that needed to be added or changed or edited. We took the first pass at a prioritized list. There will be a budget subcommittee meeting on Monday of this school committee budget subcommittee, and then a joint budget subcommittee meeting with the town on Tuesday of next week. So the budget process continues. And as David has pointed out, the town manager is exiting, but he has been a wonderful resource for me in the budget process since I arrived, and I expect that he will continue to be until his departure. Lots of stuff on the COVID front. Certainly, we are very happy that we have been able to be in-person learning. We monitor the numbers every day. So staff absences and student absences, And I can say that if there were ever a time where staff absences or student absences would impact safe operations of the school, we would take action. DESE has given us the option of using a snow day in the event that you cannot safely operate your school, and we rely on the professionals inside to make those decisions. And if there are better ways to communicate information, I know the Superintendent's Advisory Group met on Tuesday and bantered several ideas back and forth. Linfield, interestingly, is where we got our COVID dashboard. And so Kristen is a good friend of mine and a former colleague as a high school principal and a colleague superintendent and in the new superintendent's group. And we share information regularly. So I've been talking to her. Linfield does not do pool testing. They do not have pool testing in any of their schools. And so we prioritized pool testing this week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to get that information. And they just started adding the antigen tests as a means of reporting in their district. And certainly we look at how we communicate, but I want to be clear that there's not a lack of transparency. We're not hiding information. We're not withholding case numbers because we want the schools to be safe. And we trust the professionals in our buildings. Our nurses are beyond overworked. And so to say, I know the nurses are overworked, but I have great faith in Deanna McMahon and the work that she's doing in leading our nurses. And I respect that if we were ever in a situation where they thought the case count in an individual building or the number of staff absences, those are all monitored. So children reporting to their parents is one thing, but the professionals on the ground monitoring the situation, we want our schools to be safe. We want to maintain in-person learning, and we're dedicated to doing that. So if there are things that the school committee would like us to do differently in terms of reporting mechanisms or mitigation protocols that we have in place, certainly we have seen over the last 2 years, the trajectory of this disease forces us to pivot and change what we do. This committee heard earlier this year families deeply concerned that we were considering using antigen tests as something to allow kids to return to school instead of a PCR test. That's when PCR tests were plentiful and antigen tests. We're now in a supply shortage of both, and it's difficult to get that information, but it is not as though we're ignoring the conditions on the ground. And so I just wanted to be able to share that with the community and with the school committee and see if school committee had questions for me, but we are safely operating the schools, and in almost every instance, the numbers have gone down. Numbers were high on Monday, but not related to COVID. Many families ran into travel difficulties, couldn't get back, or proactively were keeping their children home because they were concerned. And that is a family decision, and we respect that.
Thanks, John. Any questions for John? Sarah?
So a couple things I wanted to ask. To follow up on that, so are the antigen tests we're doing, like when a nurse does one in the office on someone, whether it's test to stay or symptomatic, or as the follow up to the PCR, are all those positives that the nurse is getting reported on the dashboard? No, but they're reported to DESE, right? You're muted. I'm sorry, I can't. You're muted, John.
I'm so sorry, Sarah. I keep
the
hitting it.
obligatory, you're muted for the day.
Yes. Not at this time. No, those are not reported.
Okay. And then did DESE give us any guidance, because they gave these tests out? DESE gave out a test that we're not counting per se in numbers. And I if I had $1 for every time I question why DESE does something they're doing, I think we would have less budget issues. But did they speak at all to you guys about why they chose to give out all these tests that then we're not recognizing? Because my concern is, if we're not recognizing it, do we have a policy or do we need to create a policy that if staff identified they're positive through those antigen tests that Desi gave out, that we then, because I think after 2 days, isn't our current policy after 2 days, you needed some type of medical documentation of sick leave?
I don't believe so in the Unit A contract, no.
Okay, all right. So there's no problem with them using our teaching staff who use those tests using the antigen positive as a way to take their quarantine and sick leave then?
No.
Okay, all right. And then we all read in the news about the masks that the state gave out to us and the grand apology about how they weren't what they were supposed to. Have we ascertained if the ones we received as a district fell into that category of not being what was promised by Desi, or do we not have that information yet?
Murphy's Law would suggest that, yes, Marblehead was on the receiving end of the masks that were not MIT approved, but the commissioner addressed that yesterday in another call. He tends to call meetings at the last minute, but we had a call with the commissioner to address, because we were originally told, no, that's false news. All the masks that people got were quality grade masks. Now we are told that even if they are not the ones that say surgical grade masks, they're still qualify as a face covering that is appropriate.
Okay, because I know we had a large supply. Todd had planned very well, and we had a large supply. So my question was, had we diverted to our supply that Todd had kind of proactively secured for us, or are we relying on the Desi masks that kind of are up and down with the information on?
I think it's somewhere in the middle, Sarah. We had distributed the Desi masks, but we have over 4,000 masks on hand that we had before Desi made their mask available.
Okay, thank you.
John, I noticed that Deanna's got her hand up. Can she weigh in?
Through the chair.
Okay. Deanna?
I just want to make a clarification for something. So when we have an antigen test that happens in the nurse's office in one of the schools, and we take that antigen test, so we have actually observed that positive, it then goes into CIC and they have this link to the Board of Health. So eventually that test goes in through the Board of Health, and then that's when we count it. So for instance, today it was really quick. I had something that happened at the high school. It was a positive antigen. And by the afternoon, when I finally was able to have a phone call with Tracy and the Board of Health, that positive had already gone through. Those are on the dashboard. So we do have the antigen tests that are actually administered by the nurses in the nurse's office when the kids are tested through the DESI testing program, and in symptomatic and or test and stay. Those are on the dashboard, as well as the PCRs that people have at their doctor's offices. They share them in a video. They share them on real results. So they can't say to me, yeah, I got it in the doctor's office. I need to have the actual results. So a photo of the result or a printout of the result. So it's PCRs and it's antigens that have been confirmed to the Board of Health after we've seen the testing that are on the dashboard.
Okay, so maybe that's just the lag, that it's the time it takes from when it goes, because the Board of Health has to be completely overrun as well as our nurses, that from when it's taken in our nurse's office till when it goes through Board of Health and then it comes back to you. It's not just you get a positive at the high school on 6 kids that you hit +6 in the dashboard. You wait till it clears the Board of Health.
I like to have it that way because I'm not going to go on the dashboard and take things off. Nothing is perfect. And sometimes kids test positive falsely. So I'm not going to go on the dashboard. I was on the dashboard for hours and hours this week. I would really appreciate if people would have some patience and understand. I really would appreciate if people would have patience and understand that this is not simple. This is much more difficult and takes much more time than it ever has before. So people have to be in my shoes or in the shoes of the other nurses. I really would appreciate some patience and some respect. Not specifically you guys, but we see the stuff that's on Facebook and it's not true. So
Deanna, effectively, the dashboard numbers are what is represented by the Board of Health as well. So
correct.
The numbers, and so wherever there's sort of gaps in their numbers from what the reality on the ground is. I mean, I follow the wastewater numbers a lot, and as that's sort of like the most accurate of where we're headed. And, that would suggest the numbers are absolutely astronomical, which they probably are. But so our numbers are going along with what the Board of Health is also documenting and adding into their official
Correct, because
statements.
when I get results from family that the Board of Health have not gotten for some reason, she takes my numbers as well. But again, it has to be an official PCR and or an antigen test that one of the nurses has performed. We have to be able to see it. We cannot take subjective information from people. You'd be surprised. I have people telling us that their children are positive and they're not. So we can't just take someone's word for it. And the numbers you're seeing on the dashboard are children that are actually enrolled in Marblehead Public Schools. No children that go anywhere else are on that dashboard.
And they're only Marblehead residents then. If you're getting it from our Board of Health, they're only Marblehead residents that are enrolled.
If I get a positive that's from another town and I've seen that, the actual photo of the result or an actual printout of the result, and they don't live in Marblehead, those numbers are there because those are our students.
Okay. All right. Thank
But
you for that.
nothing is real time. Not going to be real time, Sarah.
Well, and I know, Deanna, I appreciate it. I work really closely with the nurse at Tower. And so I'm the counselor for her half the time as well. So I know what you're up against and I really appreciate it. And I know, as a parent, the ability to kind of contact trace and everything, there's a lot of priorities coming and going in your office. I was on the SAC call for the high school today, and we were talking about how many kids get sent to you to kind of get a mask wearing lesson. And I know that's happening at every school as well. So, I know that there's a lot of priorities for you, and I appreciate that you continue to sort of, triage and get things done where they can be done.
All right. So let's pivot to the calendar. And who would have ever thought a calendar discussion would be as much fun as it's going to be tonight? I was talking to Emily in my weekly meeting that the last time in my former job we did a calendar discussion, there were 9 revisions. So I'm hoping that Marblehead beats that by far, and that one of these 2 that have been presented can be morphed into what will be the 22-23 academic year calendar. You saw in the memo that I provided you some things that are unique to this year's calendar. We did have the superintendent's coffee that was well attended. There were over a dozen people that turned out to talk about the calendar. And I really thought it was a rich discussion because people raised questions that are sometimes difficult and dicey. And everyone engaged in kind of civil back and forth and understanding, and people that perhaps had diverse viewpoints at the end of it felt really good about the conversation. So some of the things that I heard about it were having as many uninterrupted weeks at the beginning of the year as we can have. Certainly parent conferences was fresh in people's minds, so extended time for parent conferences, and to be mindful of the number of half days. I have vetted both of these calendar versions with, I'm not sure why this mask is so problematic tonight, with MEA, and they do provide for teacher voice in this as well. Some of the things that are highlighted is there are 3 professional development days. Teachers really liked, and of course, who wouldn't, 2 years ago when DESE provided 10 days for professional development. And so we tried to take a day that was used at the end of the year and move that to the beginning. So there are 3 professional development days at the beginning. There's also a full day for parent conferences. And I understand Marblehead has had every variation on a theme when it comes to parent conferences. And so for some, this will be like, all right, we're going back to that. And others, it will open old wounds. So there is a full day for parent conferences in December. And we have taken that as the Indigenous Peoples Professional Development Day and made that the conference day. And then Good Friday is a half day in both versions of this calendar. And certainly there will be downsides and upsides, and there'll be things that people like and dislike. both of them give us enough leeway that if we have a bumper crop of snow days in 2023, we will not be pushed up against the end of June. But one does start before Labor Day and one does start after Labor Day. And so you have both versions before you, and I'm happy to take questions and begin version 3, 4, and 5.
John, when you said that you wanted to beat your old district, I took it as like you wanted more. So we're in it to win it for you.
Marblehead is different.
All right, who's got some questions for John or comments on the calendar? Em? You're muted.
With the conferences this year, what did we have? I know it was just a month
We had
ago.
a half day with evening, with afternoon and evening.
So it was just the half day. Okay, thanks.
Sarah?
So I've got lots of opinions as always. I think version 2, where we start before Labor Day and kids go for a day and a half and then have a 3-day weekend, is really hard, because if we give notice that we're not starting till after Labor Day, a lot of the programs like the Y and the summer camps will continue that extra week of camp time. For working families. That's huge. It really makes a difference in being able to work that week or not. So I think, while it's always nice to see that we could end school on June 16th, I think that very disjointed start of a day and a half and then a 3-day weekend is really hard. I'm really happy to see that we have a full day and a half day of conferences. I think that we heard from parents and we heard from staff, and that's the direction that we're hearing the majority wants to go. There was a couple other notes here. We had talked at one point, and I had made the inquiry and the suggestion about by waiting till September to do our kindergarten evaluation. I think it makes staffing and budgeting for staffing for those kindergarten and pre-K grades really hard. When we used to eval in April and people had to register by, at the end of February to get your date in April to go and do your evaluation, it really encouraged people and forced them to register in a timely manner. When we don't have registration until the end of August, it makes staffing in an equitable class size way really, really hard. I mean, we have contractual dates. We can't move teachers at the last minute to balance between schools. I think, what is that date? June 1st, John? I think we have to let people know. So I just think that as far as giving equitable class sizes at kindergarten, staffing, budgeting, if we could possibly talk about moving that evaluating back to April where it was, so that kindergartners actually start when the rest of the school starts, I think it's helpful for that point of view. But also when you look at the fact that some kindergartners wouldn't start till September 13th, is also for working families, I think, really hard when camps and childcare and things like that will have ended 2 to 3 weeks prior with the summer. That's 2 to 3 weeks with the kids that need the childcare the most, and they won't have it. And I'm not saying we need to run our schools for childcare, but I think it's a factor for working families. So I just wanted to bring up those things. And then I do have concerns right now that I was happy to see that we took Good Friday and made it a half day, because I do believe unless we can equitably celebrate all holidays in our calendar, it's really an all or none for me. I don't think we should be picking and choosing, because one of our priorities this year as a district is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think a really big piece of that is not saying we're going to pick one, we're going to pick two. If we can't celebrate and give everybody the time off to celebrate the religious holidays, I really truly believe that we should be setting it up in our handbooks that, you know, these provisions are made for students and they're protected by the law on any days that they need to take off, but that we're really enforcing with our teachers that they have to follow this. The sports teams, they have to follow this because we do have to make this accessible for all. But right now, this proposed calendar only celebrates the religious holidays of one religion. And I'm very concerned because we are a diverse community. And I think there's a lot of beauty in that diversity. And I want to make sure that we're either representing all or none. I think if we can't represent all, then we really should go with just, you know, the federal and state holidays. I just think it's really important. Otherwise, in my opinion, it speaks against our diversity, equity, inclusion goals to only segregate one or two holidays or religions.
Emily?
I think I'm confused by that. We get the Jewish holidays, we get the Catholic holiday or Christian holidays.
No, we don't
get a half day.
We don't get any Christian holiday off.
Don't we get Christmas? We get an
That's a
entire
federal
week.
holiday. Christmas is a federal holiday.
Okay, well, it's still a holiday and that's why we get it off, because I don't think we can, I don't agree with that. If it's a federal holiday.
But there's more than just there. We have more than just Judaism and Christianity. I think then we need to start looking and taking a poll about what else our students celebrate. I don't think that it's right for us only to celebrate two. I mean, we do.
Well, you
have
said
other
one
students.
originally. You said one.
Well, because right now we're not celebrating any non-federal religious holidays of any other religion.
Don't we get Easter off?
It's Sunday.
But it's like.
We do have a half day on the Good Friday.
And on Good Friday? And then you get Easter
Well,
Sunday and an entire week. I'm just saying, like, the way it's perceived is that those vacations are placed for those holidays of a certain group. So I think it's a very slippery slope to start
April
saying.
Vacation in the state of Massachusetts always begins on Patriots Day. That's how we choose it.
So it doesn't. Easter doesn't abut April vacation.
Oh, doesn't this year?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, if it does,
Well, then I take that
sometimes
back.
it does.
Sometimes, okay.
But
I
it
just
does not
assumed.
this year.
Sorry, I
it's
assume
always Patriots Day that leads it off.
that goes. Okay.
Yeah. No, but what my point is, then I want to take a survey and make sure that we are really truly being representative of meeting everybody's religious
Well,
needs.
that week, usually if the holiday winter break, you get Kwanzaa, solstice. You don't get Hanukkah.
We don't get solstice. We never get solstice.
Solstice is the week before. But
Yeah.
you do get there's a lot of holidays that fall within that week. So it does represent that. So I think maybe we look at it closer, but I think it's a slippery slope if we start suggesting that we either do all or nothing, because I don't know. That's just my opinion.
No, I just want to make sure that we really are being representative of
I understand, of all cultures
Yeah.
and religions.
Yeah, because like
But
what you said, the solstice, those are very important holidays for people that practice that religion. Very important. And it's an all-day thing for them, sun up to sundown. And we don't take that. So my point is that I want to be careful that if we're making diversity, equity, inclusion a goal, which I value, that we're really truly doing that for all.
Okay. And yeah, I think I agree, but I think we also need to be careful, and all these things aren't going to happen over time. I mean, aren't going to happen immediately. Like next year, if there's an issue and someone wants to come forth and say, this is my holiday and we need to represent it, I think that's somewhere we can go. But this town is so one-sided on how they celebrate the holidays. It's such like frustrating for me as a parent of someone who is a minority, or my family is one of the minorities of this town, that that to see that we are represented, to have my children see that we're represented with these holidays is like so empowering for them, where the rest of the year they're not. So,
but Emily, it's empowering for people who
right, but
represent
I
other
think they
minorities.
should.
that
So
aren't
then
just
let's
schools.
have people come and let's discuss it. But it's not going to be something that's going to happen next year. I feel like it's a process. We can barely get this down to celebrate more than Christmas. Like, it's going to be a process to get us to become more equitable, just like anything. So I'm just saying, we just have to be careful. So that's my little spiel about that. But to move on to the calendar, I like this calendar that you presented. I think starting after Labor Day is great. And I'm glad to know that camps will do that extra week, because that was my one concern for parents. If with that funny week that's kind of broken up in the beginning. And then with the conferences, before, did we always have a full day off and a half day? Does anyone?
I think we have had
It's all kind of different.
Yeah.
Up until 3 years ago, it was a full and half day.
It was a full and half.
Yeah. I can only speak back to 2005, but
Okay.
starting in 2005, it was a full and a half day. And it was one full day, 1 week, one half day the next week.
Okay.
Very similar to what you're seeing here.
So is a full day and a half day, is that necessary? Because then teachers also have to provide slots for the evening too, right? For working parents. So does that provide them, is that like, I know you can never have too much time, but do we need a full, I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this, but do we need a full day and a half?
Yes. This is what teachers recommended.
Teachers recommended it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize teachers recommended it. Okay. Well then.
I will say though that one of the feedback pieces from the leadership team was that they used to do 3 weeks of half days in December. And so that families really did not like that, although it afforded teachers the time they needed to have quality time and conferences with families all 3 weeks leading into what would have been an early dismissal before the holidays of December, not having a full week of school. So we are trying to avoid that. Somebody had recommended doing the Thursday and then Friday, maybe a half day on Thursday and the full day on Friday. Again, there's an upside and a downside to each piece or permutation of this. The calendar is voted on by the school committee. I'm taking your feedback tonight, and we'll bring back a version that represents some of the things that you would like to see.
Megan?
I just want to offer maybe a different perspective at the start of school. I've always been a proponent of as many full weeks as possible, especially at the beginning, for consistency and getting up to speed on routines, etc. I think watching my own children anyway, and I know that they're not necessarily representative of every child, but just, kind of thinking about especially the younger kids coming back to school, as much as we don't like a disruptive week, having that day and a half, as I think it's on version 2 that you've put forward, actually allows time for the students to come in, meet their teachers, see their classroom, kind of get the lay of the land, start to meet each other. And also, we know that their endurance, especially the younger kids, is not quite there. So I do, that's just kind of another way of looking at the start of school, is that, yes, we want to have as many full weeks as possible, but having, kind of that first day and a half is represented here, gives kids kind of that chance to come in and just get the meet and greet over with. And then that Monday, when they come back for the full week, it's like down to business. So, again, just a different perspective to think about for the start. I do like the 3 days of professional development at the beginning. And I think if that's something that teachers like as well, then I 100% support that. the conferences, again, we have tried so many different things. I don't think there's a magic answer here. Just, I don't love a Thursday off and coming back for a Friday personally. That's a minor detail. I'll take the teacher's lead there. It's just not my preference, but that's a minor detail.
David, did you have any comments before you're muted?
Wasn't the thought though, if you didn't have it on a Thursday and you did it on a Friday, people would just make a 3-day weekend out of it, potentially. And I mean, I think that's some of the discussions we've had before.
Right.
So that if you position it on a Thursday and it's just one of those things that, I guess, they're all optional. You don't have to go to them on any day, but that was one of the discussions. For me, one of the things that we've had, and it does depend on the way a lot of different holidays fall, but has been the numbers of days in school, at least consistent days, the first month of September and then in October, that students need to have some consistency in their routines and getting back. And this calendar certainly, by starting on that Tuesday after Labor Day, we do go almost 3 full weeks until you get the Monday and Tuesday off. So that gives like a good run to the start of the school, whereas you would get the same 3 weeks if you had the day and a half before as well. And I understand the benefits that you're saying. Maybe they get an introduction to their teachers in their classroom, and then they start the week off running. But we've also heard a lot about that. It relates, to families, summer jobs, as well as summer camps and all those different kinds of things as well. So, no, I think you've done a good job here. There's a lot of moving pieces to it. The day after Columbus Day has historically, I think we added that about 4 or 5 years ago because people, appreciated that, but we grabbed that back for professional development, as you mentioned. So that's just one trade-off that we have to make. So.
So I tend to feel more like Megan about the start of school, where it's nice to have the couple of days. It's a really big ask of students, especially those younger ones, to come in for the 4 days in a row. It's not a hill that I would die on with this one, because there's a 4-day week. I think that we've had some warm days come in at the beginning of the school years and stuff. So that would sort of put us past that Labor Day where it gets a little less warm with the weather. So, but it is a thought, and I think, I agree with Megan on that one. The conference piece, I don't know who I'm agreeing with at this point, but I agree that sort of the multiple weeks where you have those days. I do appreciate that you put them both on a Thursday, because that was one of the pieces when there was multiple weeks involved, where there was 1 week it was on a Tuesday, the next week is on a Wednesday, the week after that was on a Thursday. Like it was a working parent's nightmare. And just, I think when my oldest was younger, I think I was not working and then I was working. So I sort of had that experience on both sides. So it was bad regardless of whether you were working or not. I'm wondering, I think it was me who said, like, could we sandwich them and do a half day into a full day? My frustration with the piece about like people will just leave for a long weekend is that we had a lot of parent outcry this year of not having enough conference time. So, it kind of, you can't always have your cake and eat it too. Something's got to give at some point. So, but I do wonder, John, if that half day, now I'm going against what I just said, but if that half day could be moved to like the Monday so that we don't have the Thursday then a Friday, like a half day Thursday and then a full day Friday. So I don't know, kind of just another thought. I don't know if that's the 15th of December. Do you want to say something?
I do. The feedback from staff or from teachers is that the half day, when you have the evening component, it makes it really hard if it is a Wednesday, like a midweek, to then have 2 full days of school if you've been at school till 8 o'clock doing parent conferences. And so I would think that we would get significant pushback if we put it on a Monday or Tuesday. So it was put on the Thursday, knowing that there would just be the one day.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And Sarah, I really appreciated the comment about the kinder start. I had not picked that up in this. And so that does seem really, really late. So if we, you know, I'm not at all opposed to doing it. I think, Sarah, you've talked about that multiple times about pushing it into the spring, the registration and everything, so that we've got a better feel for the kids who are going to be coming into our school. I think, you know, COVID has made that process even that much more apparent as to how difficult it is to kind of determine enrollment wise where our kinder is going to sit. I will put a little plug in, and I probably will lose on this, but that winter break the December break is so short. You know, it's always short here. I grew up in the Midwest and my family is all still there. They get that full 2 weeks. It's so short. And I felt this year, and I got a huge lecture from my 9th grader about it. And then his head really exploded when he found out that I was one of them that voted on this and that we had approved the break this year. Like, everyone was so done by the end of December. And I would love to anticipate that next year we're going to be all just floating in normalcy again, but I can't really say. The reality of it is that we're probably going to have at least some version of the last 2 years that we've gone through with stress and everything. And so, you know, I don't know if there's a way to put something else that week, like, or to take even just the 22nd. It's really a long stretch into a really short break. So that's my piece. I don't know if it's possible. I know, you know, it's also, we get into warm days, and, you know, if we're going to go with the first calendar, I think, which is we're out the 21st of June, you know, that if we take a day or two, it's the end of that week. So I get it, you know, but I couldn't not say it this year. So I think those are my thoughts at this point. Sarah?
So at the end of the day, it's a math problem, and we have 180 days. We have contractual days we can't start before, and we have contractual days we can't go past. So we can't really push too much further in June, because this is without snow days. You tap 5 extra snow days on this, and you're pushing right up against our contractual obligations. So we live in New England. We don't have a lot of wiggle room there. The other thing I want to point out with the starting before Labor Day, at least 2 of the last 3 years, we've had to call days for heat or make adjustments for heat, whether it's a last minute half day, because that heat is so intense at the end of August. If we push that back, that gives us an extra, you know, we would start on a Thursday. It would give us an extra 4 or 5 days of safety of, you know, with the heat in our schools. It's been a continual problem. So I think it's really, really hard for families to kind of pivot at the last minute when we have those heat issues right at the beginning of the school year. So if there's a way, again, to delay that till after, we have more continuity of consistency of days. We have ourselves a little bit of a buffer with the heat. We tend to not get those super, super hot days in June here in New England as much as we do in August, the end of August, historically. But at the end of the day, it's a math problem. And there's just, we can't get our 180 days in if we don't go to school for 180 days between.
Didn't we have to cancel school at the end of the last year though?
I'm sorry?
Did we cancel school at the end of last school year for heat days, or was it the beginning of this one? I know a couple years ago, we were definitely at the beginning of the school year where we had to cancel. I just thought, like,
I think it was
it's,
the end of last year.
I think it was too. So we're sort of like, again, you're completely right, Sarah, that there's only so many ways to do this.
Yeah.
But I do think sometimes it just depends on.
Things that are out of our control.
Yep.
Sometimes.
Yep. All right. I think we can move on and.
Great, thank you. I
Yeah,
will take your
thank you.
feedback and bring a final version for your vote for the 20th.
All right, great. Thanks, John. All right, let me find my agenda again. This moves us on to Michelle and the monthly financial update. Michelle, did you need to share your screen for anything, or are you good?
I don't. If someone wants to pull it up, otherwise I can try to.
I can let you, and you can go through it. All right, there you go.
I've been having computer problems for the past week, so this is the first night it's actually working. So hang in there, please. Let's see. Let's see if this is going to work. Yeah. Okay, so we have our FY22 financial report. The operating budget year-to-date report is as of November 30th, 2021. This is a report that was actually expected about 2 weeks ago, so we're a little bit behind here. We will get back on track though. So as of this point, we had spent $10,797,474, or 26% of the FY22 budget. At this point last year, we were actually at 29% of the budget, so we're right in line of where we were last year, pretty much. As we continue to monitor the accounts, there's not a heck of a lot going on. That's very interesting so far. We're currently projecting the same deficit that we had last month in the special education out of district tuitions of about 112,000. As I mentioned, that's not alarming at this point. It's quite expected to fluctuate throughout the year. Our substitute account is actually finally seeing some action. We were able to hire, I believe, 17 additional substitutes since we have raised the rate to $110 a day, which is great. So now we have actually spent $65,256, or 28% of this budget line. And this is actually compared to just 5% last year. So we have seen a significant increase this year. And it was actually great at one of our meetings this week. One of the principals mentioned that even though we have a tremendous amount of vacancies with everything that's going on, the effect of it is not as bad as it even was a month ago. So we're certainly very grateful that we were able to raise this rate to $110 a day, and it's certainly working. We are really where we should be with the budget at this point, so we'll continue to monitor that though as we go along. And the third account that we're watching closely is our custodial overtime account. We knew this was going to go over at some point this year. So far, we have spent $41,268, or 55% of the budget. And as of last year, I believe we were actually at 65%. So we are slightly below where we were last year, but we certainly will be anticipate to overspend this line, which will be able to be absorbed within other lines that we have shortfalls. I mean, not shortfalls, overages. So we're good there. Also attached a budget transfer. There have been no budget transfers in the past month or so. So that's just the same report that was there last month. And then lastly, there is a COVID expenditure report. And this report is actually as of December 31st, because I put it together this week. So I was able to get that year end of December 31st. So we have spent all of our COVID funding pots except for the ESSER grant 1, 2, and 3. So we have spent the budget line, which was last year's budget. We have spent the state coronavirus prevention fund. We have fully spent the municipal program of the $1 million the town allotted to us. We have fully spent the school reopening grant. So we are on to the number 5 item, which is the ESSER 1 grant. We have spent just about everything. We have a very small portion of about $7,000 remaining, which is actually encumbered and already spoken for. So there's no available funds there. Funding pot number 6 was the ESSER 2 grant. We have spent most of that, and we do have a couple things encumbered, which will fully spend that grant as well. So basically, we're moving on to the ESSER 3 grant at this point. The award amount was $796,075. To date, we have only spent $229,577, which was actually for IT needs that we initially thought were going to come from the ARPA fund. We have learned that it's not likely that this is to come from the ARPA fund, so we have to pay the bills. So at this point, we have taken them out of the ESSER 3 grant. This grant will need to be amended because when we submitted it, we anticipated paying for a year of full day kindergarten. So we certainly need to revisit that. And this grant also has encumbered costs, which include an additional nurse dealing with the COVID situation. Permanent building substitutes, we have recently hired to be in all schools at this point. And we have ordered some additional air purifiers this week and an extra surplus supply of masks before we found out about the state masks. So we have that. And then we have some additional funds, which Nan and I are in discussions, and these remaining funds will be determined to how best spend them to meet our students' needs, whether they be learning loss, curriculum, mental health, and whatnot. But that is the focus of the remaining funds here. But so far, we have actually paid out the door or just over 2.5 million. We have 168,000 encumbered, and we have 478,000 remaining in those various line items indicated in this report, with really 124,000 not determined yet where to be spent within that ESSER grant, ESSER 3 grant, I should say. And if there are any questions on any of that, I welcome them.
Sarah?
So for clarification, the IT needs that we thought were coming out of ARPA funds, were those one of the items we made a budget priority last spring and we were told if we pulled that out, it would be covered?
Correct. Yes.
ARPA. And then for, I don't know the details, and I don't think we actually, I don't know if that might be too much in the weeds for us operationally, but so that then changed in ARPA was no longer needed to meet that. So we need to bring it into our other funding streams now.
I don't know if it's not a matter of ARPA being able to, we just have not had the support of the town to use ARPA funds for that.
Okay. So I guess I used the wrong, they're no longer willing to.
That's the message I'm hearing, but at this point, I could not hold up the invoices any longer, so we moved them into the ESSER 3 grant at this point, and hopefully this is not the end of the discussion. But
okay,
all right, not 100% positive on that.
Okay, and then how are we with our staffing right now? I know you said we're able to bring on some new full-time subs under the ARPA fund and a new nurse. Do we have other staffing needs that could or need to come under that ESSER money, or how are we with our current staffing levels across the board, I guess? So this is part of question for you, part of question for John.
As far as I know, we're okay. I mean, Nan and I have been discussing what we can provide to students, you know, in addition to our current staff, because we're meeting our needs, but certainly we can always be better. So that's what we're looking at right now is how to spend these funds and what other needs we can meet. But certainly if there are any shortfalls in areas that are causing concern for these students due to the COVID situation, we certainly could address them with these funds.
Okay. And then are we looking at, or is, I'm sure Nan's has plans in the work, but do we have some ideas of what our needs may be with the ESSER funds for summer programs for remediation, compensatory services, just
Yeah.
general learning loss?
Yep, absolutely. That is what's in actually the original grant was a summer program addressing all those needs. So that's definitely part of it. So at this point, we are planning that.
Growing that program at all? I think at the beginning, the hope was that we kind of were just kind of getting back on track from what we had, and what's going on right now is going to create another, learning loss period if it goes on for too long. So is there enough room with what's left if we need to increase our summer programs? I see John's.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It is, though, a question of leading the horse to water. We offered programming last year. We had trouble staffing it because people were just exhausted. And so getting competent, qualified staff to make those programs robust and worthwhile, and then students and families wanting just to take a break and a pause. So certainly I know Nan has ideas for summer programming this year and hopefully making it more attractive to students and families. And the money is set aside to make them just that.
Okay. And then John, at some point, in the next month or so, can we look at, as we get into the spring and warmer weather, I can see why it was hard to get staff and things for the summer and hard for families who really needed a break as well. But can we use some of this funding to offer, whether it's some small group tutoring sessions after school, lengthening the day, like for kids who have been identified as high risk, for that learning loss and things like that?
I think the short answer is yes. I'm open to the conversation, and I know that we're looking, Michelle and I are in preliminary discussions about could we bring some after-school programming in-house. And although we have wonderful relationships with organizations in town, the JCC, the Y, various organizations, might we look at something as a Marblehead Public Schools after-school program utilizing our facilities and staff?
I hear revenue.
Any other, sorry. Any other questions for Michelle? Megan?
Just one real quick one, Michelle. The overtime, what's constituting that overtime right now?
It's just a matter of vacancies within our custodial staff. We have had a number of workers' comp injuries, lengthy workers' comp vacancies, as well as medical leaves. And right now, COVID certainly is doing a number on the staff. So it's just a matter of not having temporary staff or enough custodians. So actually next year in the budget, we are asking for 2 full-time custodial positions. One is an additional position at Brown, and the second actually is a floater to reduce these overtime costs.
Okay, thank you.
And Michelle, on that topic, we mentioned a little bit where some of the overtime was accountable for the Brown School opening. Did we balance that out?
We have not yet. So this number actually, as of November 30th, will go down slightly.
Yeah, just a little, but
yeah, it's still going to exceed the budget. But yes,
right.
It will go down a little bit more.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Michelle, that number that Sarah questioned as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like that was that we had sort of agreed with the town in our final budget talks last year that was going to be covered by them, and so now it's not.
Correct.
That's this piece.
Yes. So originally it was a different number. It was a little bit lower, but it also included the phone system, and the phone system was actually able to be paid for out of additional funding the town had under that municipal COVID funds. So we did not have to absorb that cost. But this is the actual, I believe it's network switching and the Wi-Fi upgrade. So initially, when we requested it, we actually put a 3-year lease cost in. So I believe the total cost of the IT piece was about $100,000. And the other piece was for the phone system. Phone system is now taken out of the mix. We're no longer discussing that. So just the IT piece, without financing it, the total cost of that was $229,000 after our E-rate discount. So if we did not go forward with it, we would have forfeited all of those E-rate funds in addition to absolutely needing this network upgrade. So we did go forward with it, and we actually found out after we committed to the project that it was not going to be covered by the ARPA funds at that time. Yes.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. All right, anybody else? Okay, thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
So we've got a set of schedules as well. So those were all in the Dropbox. Can I get a motion to approve the identified schedules of bills totaling $2,104,357.53?
So moved.
Megan moved.
Seconded, Sarah.
Sarah second. Any questions on any of those? Okay, I will call a roll call. Sarah Gold, yes. David Harris.
Yes.
Sarah Fox.
Yes, you went out of order. You caught me off guard.
Emily Barron
Yes.
and Megan Taylor.
Yes.
All right, thanks. I always weave around who's on my screen and how it goes. And so sometimes when people pop on and off, that changes. So there's some method to my madness. All right, so that moves us along to our school committee area, and we were relatively light this evening. So any subcommittee or liaison updates for us? Sarah?
Facilities met on Monday, I believe. Yes, it feels like it was a long time ago. We met on Monday, and we talked and we went through and gave, our updates. The major thing we're looking at right now for repairs is there's 2 units on top of the field house that bring in HVAC to the field house. We've lost one of them. Todd is working very diligently to see what the options for either getting that rebuilt or replaced and getting that looked at. It's a very expensive unit. It's a large unit, and it's a significant price tag. One of the suggestions I had made was, because it is HVAC and we're depending on it, the one unit is able to keep up good right now, but it's a tax on it, that because it would fall under ventilation, that would be justifiable ARPA funds in my mind. That's pretty clear that improving your HVAC systems is ARPA funds. So one suggestion I had was that we talk to the town and see if that is an option. But I know Todd is working on trying to find out the best way to timely fix this. And John was going to work on the other piece of it, the discussions of what does or does not, qualify for ARPA. We also kind of reviewed where we were with the capital ask, were no major changes to that, with the exception, I believe, of the possible ventilation system. But we talked about, if that were to go through that article, that wouldn't give funding for that till July 1. And that's something that really needs to be fixed now. So correct me if I'm wrong, John.
No, I was just saying there were a couple things that moved from the operations presentation and Todd's
Yes.
facilities report that are now on the facilities ask.
Okay. And so all that information was put through. And I'm just trying to regroup on there was something I was going to say and I lost my train of thought on the ventilation system. Todd had put out multiple requests for bids on the roofs, just not hearing from anybody. Contractors are straight out. The supply line is really interrupted. He's working really hard to get us some more information back. He's just getting absolutely no response. So we have one in writing right now. He'll continue to work on more, but in the absence of anybody answering us, we at this point really have to keep working on getting more, but go with what we have.
Sarah, did you want to talk about using Gilbane and
Oh,
Todd
yeah, so-
working with them?
Yeah, so I had recommended, since we're not getting anybody to give us a quote or call us back, that we have these relationships with Left Field and Gilbane. Once you do a building project in the state of Massachusetts over the $1 million threshold, you're actually required to have an OPM. So we would be required to have an OPM anyway. There's a bid process, there's a hiring process. So we would still follow all of our legal requirements. But I said, we have Gilbane, we have Left Field, we have really good relationships with them. Why don't we just give them a call and say, can you come and look this over? Can you give us a ballpark of what you think? Are we in the right realm here, or are we way off in one direction? So that was something that they were going to work on as well. Just again, harvesting the relationships we already have to kind of get some information in the absence of anybody else, willing to play ball.
Megan, you had something?
Yeah, this is helpful. So I appreciate the update. Just what's the next steps then with these requests?
So the town, Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, the town had requested that we give them to them in a specific, not hierarchy, but group ones that are over the threshold of 25,000 and ones that are under the threshold of 25,000. So if you see a grouping there, it's simply because that's how the town asked for it to be grouped. It's not a hierarchy by the grouping. It's just if it's over 25,000, if it's under 25,000, and then within that subset, there is the priorities as listed. And then Michelle, is it January 11th that the town has requested the first pass of these numbers?
I believe so. I believe that's when we have to submit them. Yes.
Okay. And I don't know, to be perfectly honest, I don't know if the new town events are going to change some of these dates at all. And if so, how? But we have our stuff. We're going to meet our deadline. Michelle has her stuff ready to go. It's just kind of if the town is delayed and kind of entering that conversation with us, because I don't know what their plan is.
Okay, so this is what we're submitting to the town.
Unless there's an objection, but this, when we talked at our facilities meeting, John articulated it really well that none of these are wishes. All of these are deeply rooted in safety and security.
So do we need any wording or warrant articles for our next meeting?
I don't think so. My understanding is we tell them what we need, and then they'll come back and say in by policy and procedure, yes, we can take this on. No, this would need to be a warrant article. And then we take our lead from them. And I believe at that point, Lisa Mead would provide us the wording instead of our legal. Correct, Michelle?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
John?
Yeah, the town calendar that Jason sent out for the budget has the 11th as when those are due, and then on the 18th for the cabinet to get together to vet them. So the process is outlined, but as Sarah indicated, I don't know if that process will change at this point.
So on the 18th, who vets that? Who's that group?
I believe it's each town department. The
Okay, so
department heads that
you
submitted
would
them.
represent the schools. Okay, all right, perfect.
Can I ask one question? Oh, go ahead, David. So the roof, I was talking with someone recently who talked about a layer that can, and I am so not going to do this justice, but a layer that can be put over the top of the roof, and that they had seen it done and been involved in a project. I believe it was on another school project where it had been done, and it gives an additional 20-year lifespan at like a fraction of the cost.
So having been, so not this past year, the spring before, we did a facilities walkthrough. And we actually went out on that roof, and that was a year and a half ago. And as we went through, it was pointed out to us as we went through, but you would have figured it out on your, like anybody would figure it out on their own as well. It actually, you can feel it's not a little bit of a problem right now. You can feel it. Like it's it's spongy. And we have leaks all the way through. So what we're doing right now is continually replacing the ceiling tiles to kind of hide the staining and what else is going on to make it more visual, not hide, but you know what I mean, to make it functional. And we're just, they're literally running around with buckets.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to ask that question. Anybody else? All right, I don't think that we have anything to report either. All right, so then that leads us to new business. Any new business from anyone? All right, and there was no correspondence today, so that brings us to the end of our meeting because for the public, we are going to be going into executive session. Sarah, did you have something before I?
We had that one correspondence. We made it in Commendations, but it was from
Oh, from Mrs. Billings?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So we should just add that.
Sure. Definitely. So for the public, we are going to go into executive session, and I'll say all the legalese in just a moment. But we will not be returning to open session, so we will adjourn while we are from executive session. So we won't be coming back in. So can I please get a motion and vote to meet in executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, for the following purpose. Purpose 2, to discuss a strategy session in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the school committee and the chair so declares.
So moved.
All right, Sarah moved.
I'll second.
Megan second. All right, roll call vote. Sarah Gold, yes. David Harris. Can you unmute? Sorry, I just want to make sure you're heard.
It sounded
Yes.
to the public like he said no.
Glad I had him unmute then. Sarah Fox,
Yes.
Emily Barron,
Yes.
and Megan Taylor.
Yes.
All right, so we will now be meeting in executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, for the purpose 2, to discuss a strategy session in preparation for negotiations with respect to non-union personnel, specifically the Director of Student Services, with no intent to return to open session. So give me a moment while people leave, and I'm going to take us off of YouTube.
Michelle left. I was just about to ask her what kind of dog that was in the back.